the latest episode of Dino's Deep Dank Dark Web with film critic extraordinaire Herb Stratford. How are you, Herb?
Good. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great. I'm glad you were able to make some time for us because we're all cinephiles here.
Yes.
Right. And speaking of the movies, I guess we should wrap up last year's crop with the Oscars. So are you really okay with who won best cinematography and best costume design in the Oscars?
I'm okay with almost everything. I will say I was surprised that Olivia Colman won Best Actress because I just thought Glenn Close was going to get it. I mean, everybody thought that.
Right.
And, heck, she's been nominated 7 times and never won, which kind of hurts. Kind of a Susan Lucci kind of thing going on there.
Right.
But I think Olivia Colman was great. I really thought that The Favorite was one of my top 5 movies this year, so I'm glad to see. And her acceptance speech was just charming. I mean, she's just it was so refreshing and exciting. And then I will say my personal favorite was Roma. So while I love seeing cinematographer and director and best foreign film going to Alfonso Cuarón and Roma, not seeing it get Best Picture or losing to Green Book was a little bit hard, but I get it. That's Hollywood.
Right. Kind of more of a mainstream feel-good story.
Yeah. And that's that's okay. That happens. I mean, my analogy for that one was like the exact same thing that happened with Shakespeare in Love beating Saving Private Ryan. It's like, okay, I get it. You want to have something feel good and warm and fuzzy, but it's not a better movie. And I mean, the whole notion of best movie is kind of moronic anyway. Yeah, everybody has their own best
art,
movie.
Man. It's art. Come on.
Yeah.
But so you're okay with Green Book winning as opposed to other nominees?
I think it was a great year for film. Honestly, there were so many great movies that it was just kind of like, wow, we're in a great period of time here. There's some exciting things, new voices, new visions. I mean, I don't think that Black Panther was my favorite Marvel movie, but I love the fact that they created this world and it got recognized.
Right.
I think Black Klansman was a fabulous movie, one of Spike's best. Performances were great. It's such an amazing story.
Right, crazy story, right?
So I love that there's just these great movies that are telling stories. I also feel really strongly about that we're in a renaissance of documentaries, and the documentaries have been so strong. Free Solo this year was just so remarkable. We were just blessed by this incredible storytelling, and I like the fact that they're starting to get some traction, and people are like, "Oh, this is not just something on the History Channel. I'm going to pay money to see this stuff." The Mr. Rogers movie was fabulous.
Right,
so,
yeah. At the box office this past weekend, Captain Marvel, the latest Avengers Marvel movie, is out. And what was the box office totals?
It was huge. I can't remember what domestic was, but I mean it's going to be at $1 billion rapidly. I mean, I think we're at 850 worldwide or something. It's just something obscene. And it delivered. I mean, the interesting thing about Captain Marvel, and this one in particular, Rotten Tomatoes had to change their MO because all the fanboys were pre-hitting it with negative ratings before anybody had seen it because they're just mad that there's a female-driven superhero movie. It's just it's absurd, right?
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, at least see it first, right? So, it delivered big. A lot of people excited, of course, because this is your little fix before you get to Avengers Endgame in about a month now. So, what was that going to be? And please, if you have not seen the movie, stick around through the credits because there's 2 end credit scene that you got to see.
All the way. Not the mid credit. There's still one after that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if the lights come up in the theater. Stick around until they actually start sweeping because there is a great scene at the very, very end. So, a lot of hype on this one. I got to tell you, I was pleased with it. I mean, I thought it was good. I enjoyed myself. I do feel that it was a little bit kind of goofy.
Now, did you think the girl power message was heavy-handed?
I don't know if it was so much that bugged me. I think it was just, it seemed kind of, kind of sophomoric, the whole thing. And I thought that, and I love Brie Larson. I thought she was phenomenal in Room and some of the other things that she's done. I just think she's a fabulous actress. I think she might have been a little miscast. She seemed a little stiff. She seemed a little bit not totally comfortable in that role. I mean, just the way she walked was kind of funny. And I may be nitpicking here, and I don't want to come off in that fanboy camp because I think it was fine, but it didn't have that impact for me that some of the other movies did. I mean, I walked out of the last Avengers movie just exhausted and exhilarated and jaw dropped, and you were prepared for that. So you can never meet up to that expectation. So I think that I don't feel necessarily that it was too rammed down your throat of girl power, but I just thought, it was a very very interesting and well done kind of entry to this character. I love the idea that instead of being a traditional origin story, it's dropped her right in the middle of her life, and then she's trying to reconstruct what happened. That's a nice, nonlinear storytelling. That was kind of nice, and I did not see, some of the twists coming. Towards the end, I was like, I wonder if that's going to happen. So, it was nice to see that where it wasn't just a literal play right off of,
the usual Marvel playbook.
Yeah. And obviously everybody thinks it's just like Game of Thrones. You look at this stuff and you say, are they going to follow, or Walking Dead, are they going to follow, the book, or are they going to get creative? And I love when they go a little bit off script because it's just like keeps it fresh.
Sure. And then, of course, the 90s theme, the 90s music was great, and the Nine Inch Nails t-shirt throughout. I was like, wow. Who signed? Trent Reznor really signed off on that? That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
But he did, I guess. All right, so now that we're I guess it's weird that we have such a big movie opening in March, but I mean, this could easily be a summer movie, I think. For sure. But now with the Avengers Endgame coming out, that's really going to be the big push.
Yeah, that's the big push. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out in the pipeline. It's remarkable to me how much content. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Now studios they plant their flag. Marvel's planted flags for the next 5 or 6 years on specific weekends, even with unnamed films, and everyone just skedaddles off of it.
Right.
I mean, nothing else opened opposite Captain Marvel this past weekend. This week there's about 5 films opening because everybody had to clump up on the other side of Captain Marvel.
Sure.
So there's going to be a lot of action. Obviously, a lot of superhero stuff. This is you're right. It's an early kickoff. Endgame is going to be the biggie, in terms of the summer movie, and that's I think April 26th. So it's we got a little bit of time, but
I'm really surprised. I haven't really seen a whole lot of marketing yet. Well, usually you're inundated by this point. By this time, you're almost sick of it. But we're in March. We're only about a month or a little over a month away, and I really haven't seen a whole lot, of commercials or even online too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think on one hand they've got the brand, and I mean, so it's less of it. But the reality is, in the industry right now, the average for these big films is they're spending about $150 million on marketing and PR for these films. So if you have a $150 million budget, all of a sudden you got a $300 million nut you got to make back, which is really scary, right?
Yeah.
So I think in one hand, I think Marvel's like, you know what, we're going to let Captain Marvel carry the weight for this because we've got this built-in audience. Plus, everybody, we got clocks all over the place counting down when it's going to happen.
Right.
So it's a little less of a push.
It's almost like Captain Marvel is its own trailer for
Exactly.
Endgame. So.
It is, yeah. And I think everybody knows that. And so the other thing is there's so much great unknown about what's going to happen. I mean, we know the only other Marvel movie that we know that actually has a date and is completed filming is Spider-Man Far From Home, which comes out in, I think, July or August. So we know, Peter Parker survives Endgame or gets reanimated, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But, all the other things, Doctor Strange 2, I mean, all the other films that we've been talking about, Guardians 3, with all the director chaos, a lot of that stuff, nobody really knows what's going on. And so this whole phase 3 of Marvel is an open book. And, who's the new big baddie going to be coming out of Endgame? What's the future Black Panther 2? What is really going to happen?
And which characters are going to survive and which are not. And, who's going to carry the flag forward for Marvel.
So it's a new world, really. And then also with 20th Century Fox merging with Marvel, or, Disney buying Fox.
Right.
All of a sudden we have the idea that Fantastic Four could be brought back into the fold.
Right.
That we could see some of these characters.
For the third time.
Yeah. Well, and you may see Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool. You may see some of these crossover. X-Men may actually make an appearance again,
I saw a preview for an X-Men movie before.
Dark Phoenix, yes. And that's, of course,
origin story.
Kind of the last, I think, of that group that has James McAvoy and some of those folks in it. And that'll be interesting to see how that performs. It's a very dark tale, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, okay. So as we get ready for the summer and maybe the pre-summer now, we've got some other big movies. Let's talk about this Jordan Peele horror flick.
Absolutely, Us.
Right,
yeah, Us premiered at South by Southwest last weekend, and everyone just lost it. They just said this is just such a mind-boggling. And the interesting thing about Jordan Peele too is I don't know if you know, he's relaunching The Twilight Zone, so he's kind of becoming a Tyler Perry 2.0 in terms of an industry in unto himself. With his vision, kind of leaving behind the comedy, the old stuff, And everybody's just kind of blown away by his vision. And it's interesting that we are almost in a way, I wouldn't say as strong as a documentary sense of Renaissance, but I think we're in a renaissance of quality horror films. And when you think about The Witch, Robert Eggers' The Witch, and you think about, some of the other things that have come out, and not just Blumhouse kind of doing the goofy kind of B-level stuff, but some high-profile studio films. The guy that did Hereditary, I can't think of his name right now, but his new movie, Summer, which is the kind of Scandinavian horror movie, there's all these really high-profile, very, very well-done things. And I think Us is emblematic of that, where it's story first, and then it just happens to be in that horror genre.
Right. It's almost more suspenseful. The horror is just kind of an add-on.
Yeah, it's not the slasher thing. It's none of that stuff.
And so Saw.
It's a thinking man. It's not torture porn. It's a thinking man's horror movie. And I think that stuff resonates with me. I mean, The Babadook and The Witch and It Follows is another one of my favorites from recent years. That kind of stuff that stays with you is just, I think, more impactful than just a quick jump scare, things like that.
Right. So what do we have to look forward to in the short term here before we get ramped up into summer stuff?
So there's a couple of things that are just kind of dribbling out here and there. I think Us has got an April, maybe late March, April debut. There's, I need to go back and look at my schedule, but I mean, it's interesting. Back in the day, you used to see a lot of stuff. It was like horror was confined to this window, and it was like pre-October, right?
September, October.
And that's when Halloween, they're going to do another Halloween now, of course, because Jamie Lee Curtis just killed it with that version.
Right.
And so now horror has become kind of a year-round thing. So I think you're going to see more of that happening, where you've got, horror coming out on the same, maybe not the same kind of schedule as Star Wars and Marvel titles, but I think so that's happening. There's obviously some now that we're out of kind of the doldrums of February. February is kind of a dumping ground, for studios. They don't want to put things out because they get forgotten. So you're going to start to see some things dribble out. Of course, the big awards things are going to be down in the fall. But you're going to start to see some stuff happening, specifically titles that are going to build buzz before the Cannes Film Festival and try and have some things happen like that. But definitely some quality horror films like Us and Somar. And I just actually saw a trailer this morning for a new movie called Charlie Says, which is IFC is going to drop in May. And this is about Charles Manson and the Manson family. And it's a fictitious piece, but it's by the writer-director of American Psycho, who did such amazing work there. And it basically follows a prison psychiatrist as she's working with three of the girls who were part of the Manson family. And Matt Smith, for Doctor Who fans know Matt Smith, who just came off playing the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe in a pretty good biopic there, plays Charlie Manson. And this trailer, if you can go find it, go check it out, because he's doing a good Charlie. I got to tell you, he is creepy. So that's
spoiler
nice
alert. They're all crazy.
Yeah, and they're all still in jail. So
or dying.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad tale, and you would think that the Manson story is played out, but it's interesting to see that this is not, it's not played out. There's still a story to tell there. And ironic, because today, Governor Gavin Newsom in California just commuted all death sentences to life sentences in California.
I saw that.
So all these Manson folks who are on death row, Charlie in particular, who was in death row, are now maybe looking at a different prison sentence. So
interesting. And there's kind of still there's always a fascination with this stuff. Even the Bundy stuff a couple months ago, the Netflix things.
The Bundy stuff was very interesting to me because they started realizing that the fascination with him and the allure of him as a charming, handsome,
Zac Efron.
was almost scary. And they're like, hey, people, well, hold on a second. We're not glorifying this guy. You have to take a step back. And, and the Ted Bundy, I don't know if I saw it at Sundance, but the Ted Bundy movie, I can't think of the name of it completely right now, but it's the one about him and his girlfriend at the time, played by Lily Collins, and where they were having this relationship while he's going out and murdering people. Right. And that movie, shockingly evil and incredibly whatever, that movie is going to get a release. And that was kind of another 1-2 punch with Netflix of, oh my God, we're revisiting this stuff, but people, please put it in perspective.
Right. And as much original stuff as that's happening, obviously, a lot of the big studios, dipping back into the well. Big one, Walt Disney with Aladdin. They just dropped the trailer for that the other day. Just your first take on that.
My first take is I'm so worried, and I'm like starting my golden turd list, which we announced a couple weeks ago on the Frank Show. I'm really worried about it. I mean, I got to say, the early word that just dropped on Dumbo, Tim Burton's Dumbo, is phenomenal. People are saying it's remarkable. It's a step forward. That's of course stars Colin Farrell, and apparently the blending of CGI and reality is really really strong in that one. Aladdin, I gotta say, I just looked at it and I'm really scared.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, no, not everything that was animated needs to be live action. We got to
Right.
draw a line somewhere.
I think so. I think, I realize there's money to be made, and it was, gosh, what's 25 years ago at this point, or maybe more. I don't know. When did Aladdin originally?
It's probably many, but more. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're definitely 25 plus.
25 plus. I mean, it still holds up.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I mean, there's only like a couple jokes that are maybe a little dated,
Yeah.
like the Arsenio Hall woof woof woof. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's pretty much still a valid movie, and I
Yeah.
don't think you can really improve on the performances, especially the Robin Williams.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, it still holds up, like you're saying. And it's just like, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mhm.
I mean, I get Dumbo because it's been, 50 years or whatever, right? I mean, Walt actually worked on Dumbo, so that's fine.
Right.
But this is just like, and then I think, the problem of In That Shadow, I mean, is it too soon for Robin Williams? Are we going to redo Good Morning Vietnam? I don't know. You know?
Right.
I mean, he was iconic. It's still a very sad story. Will Smith is making some really strange choices in my mind. I don't understand what's going on with him. He's kind of doing that Vin Diesel where he was like going back and I'm going to redo, the crazy horror movie, and I'm going to redo Triple X. And I mean, just like, are you going back to the well? Because
Well, he's going back to Bad Boys.
yeah, that's true.
Is that this summer too?
I think it might be.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
so it's that same age-old thing that we always get. It's like there's no new ideas in Hollywood, and what is wrong with this place?
Right.
And then they'll surprise us, and something cool will come out. But I'm almost seeing that the cool, interesting stuff in Hollywood is not the mainstream stuff. It's the horror movies, it's the alternative stuff, it's the indie stuff. That's where the original voices are. So Us is a great example with Jordan Peele, just because he's not coming out with another Halloween or another Freddy or whatever it is. So
But he is redoing the Twilight Zone, so let's not get him off the hook.
but Twilight Zone, I will say, the time is fresh for that,
Right.
Because it feels like we're living in the Twilight Zone right now. And I think, another voice for that, and of course the movie with the Vic Morrow crash and everything was so horrible.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, it isn't so played out. But the episodic thing, I think about Black Mirror, I think about, some of these things that we've seen really demonstrate that there's a ripeness and an opportunity for episodic series that are a little bit edgy and interesting and different, or kind of putting a twist on stuff. I mean, I loved Jessica Jones, and I loved Daredevil. I'm really sad Netflix did that.
Right.
So I think there's room for that stuff episodically. I just got to find, there's such a variety of places to find this stuff. You got to find the right audience.
Last one. Have you seen the Motley Crue movie?
I have not yet. I've asked Netflix for a link because it comes out later this month, the 29th or something. The Dirt, of course, based on the novel, because it's really not
autobiography,
whatever you
yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah.
There's a little elaboration there.
Right.
But hearing some good things about it, hearing that it's very period accurate, they've done a great job on that, and the band has been very complimentary of it. I don't know if it's because they're back end exec producers, they're going to get a credit on it.
Yeah.
But one of these stories, it's funny because all the buzz about Bohemian Rhapsody and Queen,
Right.
nothing away from Rami Malek's performance, but I felt like it just was ticking boxes, and I felt like it was a little bit kind of predictable, and
It was very, you could see it almost had to have the rubber stamp of the band.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, Brian May obviously curated that image of Freddie. It could have been the Sacha Baron Cohen version, which was in development for a long time. That would have been a much rawer, R-rated version that I think would have been more interesting.
Right.
So I will say, when I see these films like this, I'm a little bit wary, because I'm like, well, damn, I want a Led Zeppelin movie, because that to me is probably more interesting than
Sure.
Queen.
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing, a lot of a Rolling Stones movie would probably be fascinating.
Right.
I mean, so what's the deal here? Where is that development stuff live? But everybody, as long as they're alive, they want to protect that legacy,
Okay.
right?
And I have a follow-up then with that. What do you think, like, for instance, like the Motley Crue movie, or even like the Rolling Stones, would that maybe lend itself now in this Netflix age of being an episodic thing where you could focus on each band member or have several arcs, that kind of thing?
I think you could. I think a band like the Rolling Stones with a 50-plus year history, I think you could actually do that. And I think you could there's enough content there where you could actually roll that out. Maybe not Zeppelin, just because it was over so quick.
Right.
But I do think you're right. I think a band like that could actually sustain something. It's just the question is, who's far enough away from it, and could you get them to actually tell the dirt?
Right.
You know, because it's not sexy, and that's one of the things I read about the band Motley Crue saying, you know, this was tough for us in a Me Too era to start with all this because they were just abusing and using drugs, women, everything, you know. So, and they're saying, well, you know, it's like a cautionary tale and it's a snapshot of the past, and that's true.
Right.
You know, they can't get away with that now, and they're making very clear statements that was us then, that's not us now.
Right, because we're all family guys now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the drugs have finally caught up. All right, well, thanks so much for coming down to Dino's Deep Dank Dark Web. Not very dark, though.
No, it's very bright tonight.
Anyways, we'll have you back throughout the year and just check in with you as the movies come out.
Great.
Thanks so much, Herb.
All right, thank you.